What is going on, everybody? BouseFeenux here with another episode of the Follow-Up, and today we're going back to Aragami because I just beat it last night and damn was it worth a playthrough. I had an amazing experience playing this game and I wanted to tell you all about it in this video. Now, I do want to warn you guys that there will be major spoilers here, so if you care about that sort of thing and you're planning on playing Aragami, you should probably leave the video now. Alright, you've been warned, let's get started. So if you haven't seen my brief overview of a dope game episode on this game yet, first of all, shame on you. Secondly, here's the gist of what Aragami is. Aragami is a stealth action game developed by Linceworks Studios where you play a vengeful spirit summoned by a young empress to free her from imprisonment. Pretty standard stuff, right? Well, I gotta tell you guys that for $20, I got way more out of this game than I ever thought I would. For starters, the single-player campaign has about 13 chapters or so, and it took me about 10 hours to beat, which, for a $20 indie game, is pretty impressive in my book. Now, keep in mind, in Aragami, you can pretty much get through the whole game without leveling up your character or killing anyone. It's tough, but totally doable. I wanted to see all the game had to offer, so I spent a little extra time clearing out levels and finding all of the skill point items that let me improve my character. If you really just blow through the game from start to finish, you could probably get through it in about 8 hours or so. As for replay value, I feel like it's kind of subjective. If you're the type of person that absolutely has to get an S rank on every stage, Aragami might keep you busy for a little while, and when you're done with that, you can then check out the game's multiplayer features, which allow you to go through the game with a partner. I haven't gotten to try this yet because all my friends are taking forever to beat this game, but I was thinking about putting a video together for it once I do, and you guys can let me know what you think about that in the comments. Lastly, if you really like this game, you can try getting through it using some of your own self-imposed challenges, like, I can only blink to get through levels, and I'm not allowed to kill anyone, and so on, if that's your thing. But now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about my experience with Aragami as a whole. Generally, this was a fantastic title, and I loved playing it. The gameplay mechanics were simple enough, and the graphical art style was an absolute pleasure to look at, and the story, while slightly predictable at the very outset, took a turn that I absolutely didn't expect, which was a very pleasant surprise. Aragami did fall short in a few places though, and although there were more or less minor shortcomings, I really feel like these few details could have elevated the game from good status to epic. Now, I know this is an indie game written with Unity engine, so I say all of this constructively. So firstly, one of my biggest gripes was enemy AI. In a game like Batman Arkham City, for instance, you could approach each stealth situation with a certain strategy, but if you repeat that strategy over and over, the enemies wise up and counter you in specific ways. In Aragami, every enemy was more or less dreadfully predictable. You could use the same strategy over and over to get through a level, and a lot of the times I did, shamefully. For instance, there's a trap power you get later on that lets you put a mark on the floor, and when you activate it, a black hole appears and sucks enemies away. It also doesn't leave a body behind. The kicker here is that you can lure enemies to step into it by making noise, and they'll come to investigate your location. All you've got to do then is spring your trap, and you're good to go. Now, this power only has 2 uses, but later in the game, you get a stealth kill option that not only vanishes corpses so enemies can't find them, it also recharges your equipped power. The result of this is that I had to take it upon myself to provide my own challenge, which is fine, but it made things a little too predictable in some situations. Secondly, I really wish there were more enemy types with different powers. Now, there are bosses in the game, and I'll talk about those here in a second, but for the most part, you have archer dudes that were sometimes frustratingly intelligent, and other times they were totally oblivious. You also had your regular foot soldiers, some of which had a little light orb that would follow them, but this was easy to play around, and that was pretty much it for the whole game. Now, again, I think that lack of enemy variety may have been due to the fact that we're talking about an indie title here that only costs $20. Stuff like various character models with different AI is surprisingly expensive to produce, and honestly, I really think Linceworks did the best they could with what they had, because what the game lacked in enemy variety, it made up for with enemy placement. Sometimes it was really difficult to get through an area just because of how a group of enemies were positioned, which admittedly made for an interesting challenge. Lastly, I feel like Linceworks could have taken advantage of the lighting capabilities of the Unity engine. Being that light is more or less a major obstacle in this game, seeing as it drains your powers and you can't teleport to a brightly lit area, it would have been interesting to see more shifting shadows and real-time lighting effects. Now, there is a scenario where this happens a little bit, and it's pretty awesome. You're actually watching it right now. It's in one of the last boss fights here, and as you're running up this hill avoiding the shots fired from the boss you're fighting, lightning strikes randomly and drains your powers. This was a really cool moment in the game, and it puts some serious pressure on you as a player because you're trying to manage your shadow power while avoiding death from the boss's light arrows. It would have been really cool to see more situations like this in the game, but you could also argue that less is more. I mean, the fact that this mechanic was limited to just one scenario made it all the more memorable, so you could kind of take it either way, I guess. But honestly, and although I went into the negatives of this game in great detail, they really aren't anything major. I very much enjoyed playing through Aragami. The storytelling was fantastic, and the ending of the game is definitely worth sticking around for. By far, some of my favorite moments were the few boss fights this game has. The first one, for example, is very nerve-wracking because the boss is pretty much just walks all over the map, and he always knows your location. In order to attack him, you've got to destroy these orbs powering his abilities, but they're guarded by enemies. This means that you're trying to quickly tiptoe around the small arena and take this guy out. Couple this with the epic soundtrack, and you've got one hell of an experience. Actually, you know what? Don't take my word for it. I'll drop out for a second, and you guys can experience this for yourselves. Pretty dope, right? All of the boss fights in the game are like this, and the last one is especially fun. I won't spoil it for you though, in case you haven't played Aragami yet and totally disregarded my spoilers disclaimer at the beginning of this video. Anyway, in summary, get this game. Actually, get 2 copies of this game and give one to a friend because nothing is better than a badass co-op campaign with your buddies. But that's gonna do it for me today, guys. Before I go, I want to thank Lenswork for putting together an awesome little title. You can tell a lot of love went into Aragami, and I'm glad that this game exists. If you've played it, let me know in the comments what your experience was like. Did you love this game or not so much? Additionally, give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and consider subscribing if you're new here. There's actually a real-life Witcher school in Poland, and if I get enough subscribers, I might be able to go to it. But until next time, I'm BouseFeenux. I'll see you at the next video, and as always, thank you so much for watching.